Hey folks, Tony and Stacy here with Murrieta Lifestyles. We've kind of been away for a couple of weeks. We've been busy working, but we've also been planning what you're about to see. Today we have an incredible opportunity to bring to you the history of Murrieta Hot Springs Resort. Today we're with Pat Jennings, who actually worked here as a young man, 10, 12 years old, you said you started here?
About 12 or 13.
So we couldn't get a better guide and get more information. And I want to give special thanks to a couple of people today. Of course, Janice Rumsey does our still photography. She's going to be here with us today. We also have Joella Martin Del Campo, who is videoing us today. And you're going to notice a substantial increase in quality. I guarantee you that.
Very much appreciated.
So we're going to talk a little bit more about Joel and what he does and what he can do for you if you have a need. And we also want to thank the Calvary Chapel Bible College. I'm not sure the exact name of the facility. Conference Center, the Calvary Chapel. They're very gracious to let us come in and share with you the history of this amazing facility. So, Pat, tell us a little bit about where we are right now and what we can expect to see.
Okay, what we got going this morning, we're standing right now pretty much in the center of the Murrieta Hot Springs Calvary Chapel Conference Center resort area. We're standing in front of what during the Gunther's time was the main office building. So I'm going to plague you a little bit. I'm going to read it vaguely because I can never remember. A little bit of brief history about the area in general. Of course, prior to European contact, the area was heavily occupied by the Native Americans, what now called Pechanga Band of Luiseño Mission Indians. They occupied this area for years for obvious reasons, water and resources. And it was 1873, Juan Murrieta and a couple of his partners bought all of this land that was part of the Temecula land grant. So they became the owners. They used the hot springs area that we'll see a little bit later to wash their sheep in the mineral water that helped clean the wool. Earlier, before Gunther's, there was an outfit that actually had a laundry here. They would ship laundry up from San Diego on the train, wash it in the mineral bath,
yeah.
Put it in the train and send it back. Guaranteed 3-day turnaround, right?
Wow.
So 1902, this piece of the Temecula land grant was bought from the previous owners and by a German immigrant named Fritz Gunther. Fritz was in the LA area, but was running a bar, but wanted to get back in the spa business because being from Germany, they had a great spa tradition, and he realized the value. So 1902, Fritz Gunther bought this area and turned it into the resort Gunther's Murrieta Hot Springs.
Now he bought like 300-400 acres.
Yeah,
right?
there was a lot of land here besides
yeah.
the area we'll see. There was 300 acres. By the time I think he sold it, there was well over 500 or 600 acres that included the area that's now the mobile home park in the back.
Yeah.
All that area was part of the Gunther
Via Princesa
yes,
road,
exactly.
all the roads up there, yeah.
So in 1970, the Gunther family sold it to Irvin Kahn and his partner Roy Schenker. The Gunthers realized the spa business was fading, airline travel and all that kind of stuff was, people that were coming to a spa here and could now afford to go other places. So sold it. Rumors was there was Teamsters money behind it. There was all kinds of
Jimmy Hoffa?
Jimmy Hoffa was supposedly here, and those kind of things. So, but what the Kahn dynasty did was, and we'll see a lot of it, a lot more development of the surrounding areas, including the lagoon and some of that stuff. Kahn had it till about 1975 when Irvin Kahn died during that time. His partner took over. They ran into a lot of legal troubles because of Teamsters money and all that stuff. 1975, a cancer clinic came in here. They were kind of a quack bunch.
Yeah.
They lasted till about 1978. The property went vacant for a long time, fell into disrepair. And about 1983, a group called Life Polarity picked it up. They were kind of almost a cultish, clean living kind of thing.
Light polarity?
A live polarity.
A live polarity.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so they got into the business, they were looking for subscribers who pretty much give up everything they own to become part of their group. And that lasted, they kind of fell on hard times when 60 Minutes came in and, well, that was, the cancer clinic got caught in 1978 because they were pretty much a quack outfit.
Oh my
We're
goodness.
going to talk more about that when
Oh,
we get to the.
yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
And so then in 1995, Calvary Chapel bought the property and began the restoration work and turned it into their conference center.
And what they've done is absolutely amazing.
Absolutely
here.
wonderful
It's
what they
absolutely amazing.
compared to what
You're going to love what you're
could
going to
have
see
happened
here.
to the
Yeah.
place.
Yeah.
It's great that they were able to preserve it.
So that's kind of the history in a nutshell. So if you want to break it off here, we'll switch it off and we'll start on the history aspect of it, or we can just continue, whatever you guys like to do.
We'll let's take you to our first. Well, where are we standing right now?
We're standing in front of, this building was built in about 1962. This was built to replace the office that they had at the time.
The Gunthers built this.
The
building.
Gunthers built this.
Yeah.
The upstairs here, there's the lobby. There was a gift shop here. It's not here now. But the upper floor is the dining room. That would have been the guest dining room, and the associated kitchens. Downstairs was the staff dining room and a coffee shop, plus all their freezers and all that kind of stuff. So it was a big investment for them. If you pan across the street here, this open area behind the umbrellas, this green area, that was the location of their original office building. I think it was built around 1905. So they used that up until they did the office building. That building was the office. It was the dining room and the storage, and then the staff dining room. So the Gunthers always took really good care of their staff. So they always had a dining room available for them. So after this building was opened, that building became the card room.
Ah.
I tell people that during the heyday, the 40s, 50s, and 60s of the resort, people came here. The women came for the spa, the men came for the cards,
Absolutely.
and all of them came for the 5-star dining.
Wow.
I'm going to ask you as we get further in, but I hear rumors about there was some bootleg liquor and.
We'll get to that one.
All right.
And on the back side of the building here, if you want to pan over that away, there is an older style building. That building predates this building. Was built concurrently with a lot of the construction of the hotels and all that stuff. In there now, where the Calvary has their coffee shop, was the bar. Of course, you have to have a bar. There's an auditorium and another smaller room that they use for special events. And Rudy Gunther, one of the owners, they actually had an apartment in the upstairs. So that's what we got here. In the old days, this place would fill up with cars on the weekends when people were leaving, people were coming. In the real early days, right after the Gunthers bought the property, they used to run a shuttle between here and downtown Murrieta
From the train station.
from the train station. So they would make 2 trips a day. They'd bring mail and passengers in, or, guests in and guests out. So the big circle driveway here was originally built by the Gunthers. So they would line up, and a lot of the original old photos you see of the property always shows this area with all the cars. You see the teen era cars, and then the 20s cars, the 30s
Wow.
cars,
That's
the
pretty
40s cars on through. So
So this is where you would come to check in
this was where you would come to check in.
and catch the shuttle and.
Yeah.
Or
Later on,
sit
when
up
people got more into their private cars, there would be cars parked all over the place. Built also in the same period, this early 1960s, was this row of buildings behind you here. They built 2 upgraded sets of accommodations at that time, 700 row, and then the 800 row down
So
on the
higher
other end.
end.
Higher end. These had FM radio. They had air conditioning, which
Wow.
the other parts of the
Higher
resort
end.
didn't.
That's uptown.
Hot mineral baths plumbed right into the building.
Oh, really?
Into the tubs for you there. So
That's
you didn't,
awesome.
Oh my
you didn't
gosh.
have to put the bathhouse. So
Nice.
Wow.
And we're standing in front of what's the Stone Lodge now, but it's known by a few other names.
okay, excuse me. When I worked out here, I've always known this as the annex building. It was built in 1926. Was the last big part of their construction during that era. It was viewed at that time as a totally fireproof building because it's basically all made out of concrete.
And wasn't
So-
it with the first fireproof building in the area?
Supposedly,
Yeah.
yes. So it was a step up from behind us over here where the Monterey and the California Hotel was. There was actually, before they put the annex in, there was a row of little bungalows here. They called it Cottage Row. Some of them they moved to the back, some of them they got rid of. But this was kind of the upgraded version during the time period as far as accommodations were. Had a beautiful lobby you'd walk in, but the most striking feature about this particular building, when you walk in, there's a set of double stairs. At the end was a full life-size portrait of Fritz Gunther, the founder. It was a full-size oil. If you look through the historical books, there's always a picture of that picture of that painting there. The family still has that photo. And I remember when I was working here as a young guy, and I do my room running, the lady that was the maid here, her name was Vi Kane. And a side note, her husband was the last ranch manager for the Santa Rosa Bale Company's Santa Rosa Ranch. So behind us here, if you want to swing around, we would have been at the, back when I was a kid, there was still a big building here. This was the old office building.
In the green area.
In the green area, yeah. But
So the building's gone.
the building's gone. Calvary
okay.
demolished the building. Apparently, it didn't sit on a foundation.
Oh.
So it was actually a two-story building. There was a big upper section in the back. It was actually subterranean where they had all their refrigeration units and all that kind of stuff. When I was a kid, I used to ride a motorcycle, so that's where I parked my motorcycle when I came to work. And so, but you were talking earlier about, in the other segment, about the bootlegging and all that
Yes.
stuff during the 1920s. Well, as an aside note to this building, right along this edge here, there was a stairwell that went down underneath the building that went into the underground area, was called the Sub. So back in the Prohibition era, there were rumors of bootleg liquor from French Valley.
Strictly rumors, though, right?
Strictly
Strictly
rumors.
rumors. Nothing you know anything about.
Nothing I know anything
Nope.
about. Well, I wasn't born.
You weren't
then.
born then, but I mean.
I heard.
Yes.
Yeah.
But anyway, so, and also illicit slot machines.
Really?
So, but gambling was
Oh,
always
that's
a
so
big
cool.
part of the resort
Yeah.
because people like to gamble. And so, in later years, in the 60s when I worked out here, it was like the submarine soda shop kind of thing. But because by then they were playing cards in the upstairs
Right.
after they built the other
Great
building.
place for the kids of the
Yeah, there
residents
was
to go hang out.
the
and-
hot
or
spot.
guests.
And later on, we get down on the lower end of the resort. That's where the ice cream parlor and stuff was originally. But then they moved it up here. But there were some really good parties here in the 60s.
I bet. So where's
What we didn't show is up around the corner. There was a resident up there, a residence up there that would the Gunther family lived
Right.
in. So that was another party spot. But Tony will deny that. Tony Gunther. So.
so you said there was a staircase that went down underground.
Yeah.
Where's the staircase? It's all built over.
It's all built
Can't
over.
get in
It's
there
all
now
gone. You
anymore.
can't get there.
There's no more sub.
No more sub.
So this building behind us was actually like an accommodation.
Yeah, it was hotel.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Everything here was geared toward the comfort of the guests. So this hotel would have been a more of a little bit of an upgrade from the Monterey and the California hotels. Plus, at that time, they still had the bungalow rows of the
How many?
real-
Do you know how many people, like when you were first started working there? How many guests could they have for a weekend?
Oh, I couldn't tell you. They'd fill this place
Hundreds.
up. Hundreds, yeah. They'd fill every accommodation up.
I'd be curious to know how many rooms. were
Yeah.
available.
I mean, this is a big complex now, but I mean, it hasn't shrunk any, has it?
No,
Yeah.
some of the bungalows and smaller little things have gone, but the
probably
main hotel,
replaced
the main
with-
hotel, the Monterey, the California, the Annex, the 700 and 800 row are still here.
Now, one of the reasons that this was a draw was the mineral water, the mineral baths and everything. But one of the things that aided the growth of this and the sustenance of the sustaining of this resort was the rail, right?
In the early days, yeah.
The early days,
railroad-
they would come from
railroad
L.A. and
accessibility.
San Diego because
They
of the
come
railroad.
from L.A., they come from New York. They
Really?
come from all over the country. But they had guests here from Europe.
But it wasn't as high profile as L.A. or New York. You could kind of come
No,
in and be a little
the spa
quieter.
tradition at that time was you come for 2 or 3 weeks. And the idea was to get out of the city and decompress. And, that was the era of the steamer trunks when you came.
Oh,
And
right.
you didn't come for a few days, you came for a couple, 3
Right.
weeks. And so
I like that idea.
Yeah, really.
the resort was geared
I'm going
for that accommodation. 5-star dining, coffee shop, the spas, the massages, all kinds of outdoor activities. There was, we'll get down to the swimming pool. There was horseback riding. There was badminton. They had a 18-hole miniature golf course, tennis courts. Later on, when car travel got better across the street over there where that big shopping center is now, Gunther's maintained their own gas station for storing and maintaining their guests' cars. And so it was a full-service resort. Anything you could want here. They had doctors on staff. They had physical therapists. They had masseuses. They had everything you needed. So when you came, especially in the early days when you came by rail, you could stay here 2 or 3 weeks, and you had every amenity.
No reason to leave.
Yeah.
No reason
And they
to leave.
always, their brochures always said, you know, for X amount of dollars a week, you got regular attention, which was pretty good attention. You know?
Wow.
3 meals a day. The only thing that you paid for outside your accommodations, you know, you got room and board, and then you pay for the mineral baths, and you pay for, you know, whatever activities. But the pool was free and all that kind of stuff. So.
Love it.
Now, one of the things that you haven't mentioned that I've been told is one of the big draws was music.
Yes.
Nightly, was it nightly?
Nightly.
Nightly, there was the big
Yeah.
band era, and there was a big band that essentially performed here. Tell us about that, because I know that fits into
Well, we
the
were
whole-
down by the office. I mentioned the auditorium.
Right.
Well, they had a bandstand in there. They still do. And they also had the dance hall. And so, of course, dancing was big. You know, band music through the eras evolved. But what was interesting, they had a lot of name brand entertainers come out here from the big band era. But they also noted that the staff performed.
Oh, that's cool.
And so the Gunther family would perform, and the cooks, the waiters, all that stuff. Most notably, the Burnett family, the Bazanzin family, the Gunther family. They all would get together. They all played different instruments. They were all entertained.
And the Bazanzin family is Ray's Cafe
In downtown
in
Murrieta.
downtown Murrieta. We've done a video of Ray's Cafe if you've seen some of our past videos. So, yeah, I just find that fascinating that the waiters and the linen people and the check-in people, they were part of the band.
They're all
at
double
night.
duty.
They-
Yeah, that's right.
And they would do other things there. We have documentation of a snipe hunt that they put together where they would go look for snipe, you know, that old story. You know, all kinds of fun things. Horseback riding, the whole night. Hiking. They had hunting and all that kind of stuff too. So it was a full service resort. Like I said, people would come here for 2 or 3 weeks, not
Yeah,
just
yeah.
a couple of days.
That's
So,
Nowadays, you
so it
know,
wasn't here just for a massage and a facial.
Yeah, it was here for long-term relaxation and decompression and taking care of
Yeah,
yourself.
because the world was so complicated in the 30s.
So,
So now we're standing in front of what used to be bathhouses.
yes.
And so Pat's going to give us a little bit more history of kind of where they were and what they are now.
Okay, as we talked in the earlier segments, the spa tradition was really big. The big draw here were the mineral hot springs. The next segment will be up where the actual hot springs are, but right now we're kind of at the end of the annex building. We would be behind where the original office building was. And over to our right here are the bathhouses. On the left here is the mineral bathhouse, and the building over here on the right was originally the mud baths. So what they would do, because they would actually use the hot mineral water in the mineral baths. They would have clear mineral baths, and then on the other side they would use mud. So where they got the mud, and later on we'll see the lake on the lower part of the property, that was built, the lake was dredged out in the 1970s. When the Gunthers owned it, that was actually a tule bog. If you're familiar with a tule bog, it's a big muddy area full of cattails and some stagnant water. Well, the water that went into that tule bog was mineral water. It was runoff from the hot springs up here. So what they would do, they had a guy that all he did was went down there and he cut blocks of mud, and they would put them in the mud baths. So they would fill the bathtub up with blocks of mud.
So it was mineral infused mud that
Right,
came out of the hot springs.
that came out of the hot springs.
Right.
And then they would put hot mineral water in it, and it was part of the spa process. So they had the mud baths on that side and mineral baths over here. They also had a full gym, and they used the gym a couple nights a week. They would show the old 8mm movies. They would have
Yeah.
movie night. I think it was Tuesday and Saturday night. Upstairs on the top, you can still see the slat work up there was a sunbathing platform where you could sunbathe nude if you so desired. And so,
All right, then.
like I said, the office, they're using these now for offices. The lower section down below where the stairwell is down there, on the bottom was the laundry for the project, or for the resort. So there was, you know, of course, sheets, pillows, table linens, all that. And then upstairs was part of the maintenance facility for the resort where they employed, you know, all the people that kept the place running.
Right.
The little stairs down over here to the right was the linen room. That's where they kept all their linens and everything. That's where my grandmother worked. She was a seamstress and worked in the linen room. Prior to working in the linen room, she worked on the lower section down here. We'll show you what's now their bookstore was the soda fountain. It was also the office where you could check out golf clubs for the miniature golf course, tennis rackets, and that kind of stuff.
So laundry down there, they'd bring the linens over here and store them. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, they actually had an old Volkswagen pickup, and the only distance that went was from here to there.
Did you see a Volkswagen pickup?
Volkswagen
Okay.
pickup, yeah. Everybody wishes they had one of those now.
Yeah, now, right? Yeah.
The transporter. So, yeah. So, like I said, they're using them for offices now. This building is actually new. They had tore the original mud baths down and built this building. Calvary built that building in a likeness, which is really close. They had part of there also. They had hot steam. They had hot rooms, hot dry rooms, hot steam rooms. You could get a massage. You could get a salt pack. Like I said, the upstairs gym. They had full weight of then current weight equipment. Masseuses. It was full service. You could get whatever you wanted. So
Amazing. And then Pat, up behind us up here, all the land up there. I know you said it was all part of it at one point. Do you know? I mean, what was this behind it here?
originally there was a little row of cottages behind here. I haven't been back there to see
Yeah.
if they're still there. Then there was a slope going up. Back in the Gunther's day, there was nothing up there but the Gunther's house on the hill.
residents, okay.
But you can see part of the rock work back there. That's actually starting into the area where the hot springs are.
Oh, neat.
Yeah,
Cool.
Are we headed there next?
we're heading there next.
All right.
Okay.
Had it last time too.
Oh, I did?
When the resort was being developed, mainly when they went into a lot of their development especially in the 1920s, one of the Gunther families, Rudy Gunther, was a designer by trade. A lot of what was done here was done under his direction. Part of it was tile. I've heard all their tile, it's Degodi tile. They bought it in LA. It's an Italian style tile. And you see the remains of it just about everywhere in the resort. Later on, we talk about the pool. You see the original pictures of the pool. Everything at the pool was this Degodi tile. What we're talking about here today, this section that we filmed earlier, like particular here, the Dead Giveaway, Calvary Chapel, is this particular motif that they use there. If you pan over to this particular part, a lot of this is original to Rudy Gunther's design. So it's a mosaic of tiles that you find all over the resort. When Calvary took over the place, of course, it was in not real good repair.
Disrepair, yeah.
So especially when we talk about the pool, they had to do a lot of work down there. So they had all this tile left over, and they realized the significance of it. So as they rebuilt areas of the property, they incorporated that tile, which I thought was a brilliant touch
It
on
really is.
whoever
It's
thought
amazing.
that.
It really is.
Saving the history of this
Yeah.
facility is what they've done, and it's amazing.
And so they've saved the history and they've saved the heritage of it. So I thought it was very well done on their
Brilliant.
part, the way they incorporated
Brilliant.
it. So
Now we're standing by the base of the hot springs.
this is the center of the hot
It's
springs.
the center of the hot springs.
springs themselves.
Yeah, the actual mineral water that bubbles up from the earth at warm temperatures, and that's all I got. Pat's going to tell us the real story behind this.
Okay, where we're at, we are actually at the center of the hot springs. The hot springs around us were the reason that the resort was here. So as you can see, you can't smell it online on the video, but it's mineral hot
Sulfury.
springs. So basically, there's a geothermal fault here. The wells up this hot water. It's impregnated with all kinds of minerals. Hence the smell. Sulfur's the biggest part of it. So there were natural hot springs. They've been developed and redefined over years. Some of the recent work, the rock work here in the back of it, is recent, probably by Calvary. We're going to go over to the older part of it here in a minute, but the temperatures range anywhere from about 98 up to about 114, 115 degrees.
That's hot.
A little
Totally
higher.
natural.
Yeah. And originally there were 3 springs here. I don't remember the Ramona, the Siloam, and there was one other I don't remember the name of it. Each of them apparently had a little different flavor. So you can look over here. We have water coming up here.
Let's walk a little bit.
So we can water here. So we're going to go over to this next section. This was a part of the spa that was developed by the Gunthers. So you can see the brickwork and the rock work here. During the Gunthers' heydays, this is where the springs came. So you can look over here. This was actually a little bit of like a well where the hot water bubbled up in. There were 2 more up there. So part of the spa involved, you could drink this water. It was medicinal, supposedly helped rheumatism and rickets and everything else that whatever else was ailing you, this would cure. So they actually drank this water. The people actually bottled this water and took it home with them. But these little niches here, they had long-handled dippers because these things were down a little bit, so you could dip the hot water up. There were paper cup dispensers, and over here they always had a salt shaker because, like hard-boiled eggs, something sulfurous, always tasted a little bit better with a little salt in it. One of the side notes is Gunthers, also ever enterprising, sold little tin cups about this big around, said Gunthers Murrieta Hot Springs on the bottom, that you could use instead of the paper cups. And they sold them in their their gift store. You could also have them engraved if you wanted. Mike Dolan was the dishwasher. He, for 10 or 15 cents, he put your initials on it and the date. So
That's cool. Let's walk around here a little bit. So this is all original
Gunther. This is original to the Gunthers.
masonry work. I mean, it's fascinating. If you walk up to, what was up here? Just another pool?
There was this spring here.
There was a spring there, yeah.
There was a spring here that they currently still drink. The water used to run into it. And then there was a big one up here. You can see a little bit of the kind of rock work. Again, we're starting to see a little bit of the tile work. Yeah. And when I was a kid, used to come up here, the water level was about 3/4 of the way up. And you could just, it bubbled right up into here. And what we're actually standing on in the area here is where the original covered plunge was. Back in the early days before the lower pool, that was built I think 23, there was a covered plunge, they called it. This was a mineral plunge.
You would actually, people would actually get in.
It was a swimming pool.
Okay.
They called them a plunge back then.
Okay.
Back when I worked, they still called that pool the plunge.
The plunge, yeah.
And so it was a big pool, but this pool was covered, had a big tin roof over it.
This one here, that works where we're standing.
And it was a mineral pool. It was they mixed fresh water with the mineral water to keep it at a temperature
that you could
swim in.
tolerate, yeah.
Yeah. And so later on, when they put the lower pool in, and that's a freshwater pool, there's actually a reservoir under here that we're standing on that they kept the level of mineral water up, because you can see that, like, the discharge rates of the springs. Well, they use a lot of water, and you can get a really good view of the bathhouse from here. The reservoir here maintained the water level that they needed for the mineral baths. So it was like they're.
And I'm assuming they just capped it off, and that's why there's no water in it right now.
Yeah, Calvary, in my understanding, Calvary, because of the condition of this, they rerouted several.
Gotcha.
The spring over there. That spring always kind of came out, but this one up here is new. That one was never there when I used to work here. That water probably discharged down here.
Oh, I got you, yeah, that makes sense. But it's cool that they've left this here. And
Yeah.
this is, if you ever get a chance to come in here and see this, it's just amazing.
Yeah, and as you walk down toward the pool, there was a fountain there that was the place everybody took pictures. And it had the typical Rudy Gunther artwork. There was rock work with concrete branches sculpted. That was a pretty typical motif throughout the whole resort at that time. It was here, there were sections of it on the main road coming in, down on the golf course, the miniature golf course and all that stuff. That was Rudy Gunther's touch on the design. He also had a hand in, like, the Spanish style Moorish,
Yeah.
the wrought iron work and all that stuff.
So did they, there's the little
Alcove.
clips there, you can see
Oh, yeah.
where they were, same as where they had the dippers
Yeah.
over there. So they could actually come up here and drink up here too, right?
Yeah.
Drink the,
You see, there was another little spring right there where the water
Oh,
ran
yeah,
out of
yeah.
ran out of there. So
What year do you think this was built?
It was probably built, I'm thinking, I remember right in the 20s when they did a lot of the work, late teens, early 20s.
Yeah.
They kind of two sets of developments, like the annex was built in 26, the Monterey, California was built a little earlier, and so the bathhouses were built.
Monterey, California being one of
the
the
two hotels.
accommodations.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And so, kind of two stages of growth I figured here, but this was probably done at that time when they removed the plunge from here, the mineral water plunge, and built the lower pool.
Gotcha.
Oh, it's really exciting.
Okay, we're at the pool. This is a freshwater pool as opposed to the original pool, which was mineral water. Back when I worked here in the late 1960s, some of the tile work you saw earlier, this was a full tile pool all the way through.
Bottom and everything.
Bottom, everything. So the open areas you see across the pool from us, those were locker rooms. They were full tile locker rooms,
So
top
it was
to bottom.
closed in.
They
It wasn't
they were
open.
all closed in. They were locker rooms. The alcove had a big tile desk, so everything here was
For
tile.
like check-in or check-out
Check-in
towels
and
and that kind of
check-out
stuff.
towels and
Yeah.
stuff like that. That was my job.
was to
when
say,
I
that's
was
where you
like, like I was 15. That's what I did. And so,
What a tough job.
what a tough job. It beat picking banana squash because that was the only other job available that summer. So it was great.
Gosh, yes, I like
So
that.
the pool was full tile. About where their dove is, there was a tile mushroom with a fountain in the middle of it that would squirt water when the pipes worked.
When the pipes worked.
Behind us over here, there was actually a diving platform, but because the pool's only 6.5 feet deep, you didn't dive off it very much. We used it for a lifeguard tower and a diving board. The good thing, the Gunthers were excellent employers, and they were excellent neighbors. So Fred Gunther and the gang, they were big supporters of like the local Boy Scouts. My mother-in-law recounts that she needed a dress, so the Gunthers bought the dress for her.
Aw.
But also the big thing that the community of Murrieta loved the Gunthers for is they let you come out here and swim at this pool. Because there was no swimming pools in Murrieta, so if you wanted to go swimming, there were two reservoirs you could go swimming in, or the silica mine, which your dad would beat you greatly for if he found out you rode all the way out to the silica mine to go swimming. So they would charge like 35 cents to come out here and swim all day. All I know is it was a long ride out here from Murrieta in my younger days on a bicycle to come out here and go swim.
But you didn't have to cross the freeway.
Two of them, 395 and 71, there were flat crossings. You had to be careful, especially
Yeah.
when it was foggy.
Yeah.
So this was the hot place to be. Again, it was a beautiful pool. I understand why they took all the tile out, because even when I worked here in the late 1960s, the pool leaked. So
But there was a sublining or something.
yeah, it had a
where-
sublining.
Yeah.
Down below is the pump room. You could come part way under the pool, but mainly we never went back there because the water leaked out of the pool. It was like I said, it was a full tile pool. The grouting leaked. They reconditioned it once, and then later on, I'm not sure if Calvary who did it, but they took it all out and did it this way.
So what year was this built? Do you know?
Or 1925, I think.
So 1925 was the first time they had non-sulfur
Non-sulfur
pool.
pool.
So this was a freshwater pool in 1925. I bet this was something else.
Yeah, 1929, my mistake.
1929, correct?
Yeah, and it's had that same Dalton, Deltoria tile that you see all over the place. So, and as we walk down below, you'll see more of that tile. A lot of it probably came right out of this pool, or the
Oh, right.
or
Repurposing.
the locker rooms. So this piece behind us where the alcoves, that was the edge of the pool. The later additions, the other build, the other
The patio out there is.
it was added later,
Right.
I think during after 1970. Before it just fell off. You went that way, you went into the Tule Bog. If you walked out this way and walked straight out toward Hot Springs Road, you went to parking lot and the quarters for staff. They had a women's and men's dormitory. So.
You know, you've mentioned a couple of times about how great the Gunthers were to the community. Can you expand on that a little bit? I mean, you know, they were great neighbors, you said, and they employed half the town, right?
Yeah, more than half the town. Murrieta at that time, up until into the 1970s, was a farming rural community. So either you farmed or had something to do with farming, a merchant of some kind, The other big employer around here was Camp Pendleton. You worked civil service, or you worked here at the Hot Springs. And there was not uncommon to have 2 or 3 generations working here at the Hot Springs at the same time.
Oh my goodness.
Now, when I worked here in the late 1960s, my mom worked in the coffee shop, and my paternal grandmother worked in the linen room. So later on, my 2 brothers worked here. I rode out with people, a guy named Chuck Jensen. His mom worked out here. He worked out here, and you know You worked in the dining room. You worked at the pool. You worked in maintenance. There was always a job. And interestingly enough, and I'll touch on it real briefly here. I mentioned earlier we'd gotten some historical records on employment here. The thing that is becoming more apparent is that the Gunthers hired a large number of people out of Europe right after World War II. Now, we haven't really talked, we talked about the spa tradition, but the people that were big into the spa tradition in that era were mainly a lot of Jewish people. So later on,
As far as providing the services, like the
No,
treatments or the
well, both.
Yes.
Guests
okay,
were predominantly Jewish, but
okay,
when I worked out here, it was not uncommon to find guests and staff still with tattooed numbers on their arms. They were Holocaust survivors.
Really?
wow,
And so, as we're reading through the employee record, a lot of people were coming, they were given addresses out of Europe here. And so, like I said, staff and a lot of guests, a lot of Holocaust survivors. Later on, when Khan and the gang developed the mobile home park up here, the original purchasers were all mainly Jewish, out of rich, affluent families. These were second homes for a lot of these people from New York and from LA and all those areas. And you know, they built the Ben Chai Temple down here. It was built during that era when the population was predominantly Jewish. But so they were supporting those people and supporting the community. Like I said, Boy Scouts, any civic group. He was in all kinds of political actions,
Really?
and they were all just tied together that way with the community.
Oh, that's pretty
So
cool. Pretty amazing.
when the railroad tracks washed out in the Temecula Gorge in the 1890s, you know, and then later on when the mail service stopped, Gunthers would shuttle mail and do all that kind of stuff. So
Whatever they could to help
whatever
the
they could to
community.
help the community.
Oh, that's
So.
pretty cool.
Okay, what this particular view we're looking at right now is actually a portion of the resort that was developed after 1970, after the Gunthers sold this property. Prior to 1970, this area out here was undeveloped. What you see up this way and out here, there was not much there. The only thing you could see out here was this particular building down here that says Sanctuary on it. That was actually the boiler plant for the property. Provided heat and steam and hot water for domestic use. Behind us, where you see this lake or lagoon, was the Tule Bog where they got the mud for the mud baths. After 1970, when Irvin Kahn and the gang started developing the property, they dredged this lake, built all this up out here, and installed those condominiums, all starting early 1970s. So, interesting side note, the only other thing that was out here besides the boiler room out in this area was the staff housing. Like we talked a little bit earlier about the Gunthers and their support of everybody, part of what they provided for their employees was meals and a place to stay if you didn't have it. So they had a men and women dormitory out here, and then they also, in the bottom of the main building over there that was built about 1962, they had employee dining room. So part of your room and board out of your wages was, you know, a place to stay and a place to eat if you didn't have that. So some people commuted to Murrieta or surrounding areas to work. Some people actually lived here. There was a time in the mid-1960s when we lived in my grandmother's house when I was a kid, and my grandmother lived out here.
Oh,
So
wow.
I don't know why they did that, probably to save money and
yeah.
till my folks built their new
great.
house. But anyway, she lived out here, and we used to come out here and visit her when we weren't working out here. So.
Oh, that's very cool.
This is just absolutely beautiful. Are there a couple hot springs right there? Is that a hot springs right there? I see the steam coming off.
No, it's probably runoff from
Runoff
up above.
from up
Because
above.
what they've done is they've plumbed the water. The water used to come around right to the corner of where the pool deck is.
Yeah.
Then it just ran out here in the field, and that's where the Tule Bog was,
Oh,
right?
wow.
So after Gunther sold it, probably either Calvary or Con's group, because they seem to have the most revenue, redeveloped all this area, and they've terraced all this, added these fountains in and everything. They're using runoff water from the hot spring
Gotcha.
because the water was just running out in the field.
And you can even still see some of the tile work that we brought up later on that kind of goes along this border here, this planter border. I mean, this whole complex is absolutely fascinating. We sure hope you're enjoying this because it's.
No, we are.
Yeah, we're having a blast. It feels like we're in Hawaii right now too. But
Okay, we're looking across the way over here. It's the Monterey and the California Hotel. One was built in 1904 and the other was built in 1908. They were the premier accommodations here up until they built the annex in 1926. Prior to that, there were some little one-room bungalows. Some of them ran along here, some of them down across from the coffee shop. So Calvary Chapel's currently using them for women's dormitories. So that's what those are used for. There's some condominiums down along the main road over there behind the sanctuary. The sanctuary down here in front of us was built by Calvary. Along Murrieta Hot Springs Road, there's a row of condominiums. Those were built during Irvin Kahn's tenure around 1970, 1971. Last job I had at the hot springs was installing shower enclosures and Murphy beds in those condominiums in the fall of 1970 before I went into service. So the building right here adjacent to us, I'm not sure what they're using that for now, but that was the boiler plant used for steam and heat and domestic hot water that wasn't mineralized for the resort. So you hear rumors about underground passages and all kinds of hidden things under the hot springs. Well, most of them are plumbing chases for the heating and hot water chases and stuff. So used to be a big black smokestack on the top of that building that you could see all the way to Murrieta. Surprised it's not a Superfund site. It was oil-fired boilers. They had two big oil-fired boilers.
wow.
That provided all the heat and the steam. Because, like right up there's the linen room. Of course, they had steam-powered presses, so they used steam for that.
Yeah.
The annex, and I think these two buildings use steam heat, radiator-style heating, plus all the hot water and all the other stuff that they needed domestically for like the dining rooms and stuff. All
So
came from here.
the accommodations in these hotels were not like I think what we're used to today. They were very minimal to our current day standards.
Probably the annex was kind of higher end. You know, had a couple nice beds and nightstands. No TV, but they did have their own bathroom and a closet. These were a little more simplified. Small bathroom or no bathroom at all, like a bungalow. So the accommodations were priced accordingly.
Yep.
So
We're in front of what was at one time the ice cream shop, if I'm
Yes.
not correct. This is the where the kids would go hang out and get their phosphates and their sodas and.
exactly. So as we talked a little bit earlier, you know, they had stuff for mom, they had stuff for dad as guests out here, but they also brought their kids. So there were a lot of activities. They had their own stables. They had horseback riding, hay rides. Of course, they had the pool. Then they had out in this area, they had an 18-hole miniature golf course. They had 3 tennis courts and croquet and other organized activities, hunting, all that kind of stuff. So for years, this particular building behind us was the basically the hangout. So early on, it was the ice cream parlor / office for renting out all the stuff, the mallets and and the clubs and stuff for the events. Later on, we talked about the sub. The focus kind of moved up there. This was then more or less a special event center.
When you say hangout, would this be like where the teenagers
Yeah.
hung out when mom was getting the?
They were getting a massage. Dad was in the card room, and they weren't at the pool. They were down here. Later on, they were at the sub up there, where the old office building was. Okay, focus kind of shifted. My grandmother worked down here for years. We used to come out and get ice cream sodas before I was old enough to work out here. Now later on, after Gunther sold the property, this became the sales office for the sale of all those mobile home
Oh, okay.
parcels
up
back
on the hill.
up on the hill. So it's had a bunch of different uses. Under Calvary, it is their bookstore. In the back, I don't know if we can get back there. There is a big, like a patio where they had activities. and stuff like that. There was a fireplace, outdoor fireplace. It was a place to hang out. They actually, when I was a kid, they did hamburgers down here, they did that kind of stuff. So they didn't really have a coffee shop back then before they built the coffee shop across the way. So if you wanted just something quick, you'd come down here. It wasn't part of your fee, but it was part of your fare. So interestingly enough, you see this row, that's about all that's left. This used to be the main. This used to be the main entrance going out to Hot Springs Road. You used to come in this way.
Oh, okay.
So they've moved that over when they built the garden shed. But this rock wall ran all the way out to Hot Springs Road and had the typical Rudy Gunther branches made out of concrete kind of stuff. So
Now, Rudy was Fritz's son or brother?
son,
The son, right?
two sons.
Yeah. And he was the architect. We've got incoming here.
Yeah.
But Rudy was kind of the driving force behind the architecture.
Yeah, he
of
did all the design work.
Yeah, interesting. And that let's walk over here just real quick and get a picture of this wall, because this is an original. This looks like those moon rocks that you see in your fire pit.
This rock all came from Murrieta.
Okay.
You know, Mesa de Burro, now part of the Santa Rosa Ecological Plateau.
Oh yeah.
Places like Miller's Canyon is full of this stuff. It comes off Mesa de Burro. It's
Wow.
volcanic in origin. The volcano is actually over near Duluth, off Duluth Road.
Messed
But
up
Mesa
over
de
here.
Burro is all full of this kind of rock.
Wait, did you say volcano?
Volcano, yeah.
We have a volcano in Murrieta.
Yeah. Well, it's actually out of the city limits now.
Didn't know.
It's in Duluth.
It's
It's not in Murrieta.
Off Duluth Road.
Duluth, okay.
So,
But,
But this is where all
but
this
this
rock
is the
came from.
volcanic rock, and
Yeah.
they brought it down here, and like you said, this went all the way to the street.
Yeah.
But this is
And-
all that's left. There's about 15 feet of it.
Yeah, and you see pieces of it left all around, but the rock's called Santa Rosa basalt.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I had no idea we had a volcano in our area.
Yeah, been extinct for a long time. But side note, Mesa de Burro, you heard of it up there?
Yeah.
Yes.
Mesa de Burro is all volcanic flow. It's all this stuff. Yeah.
Huh.
In fact, most of the Santa Rosa is that way.
We may need to go up there
I
and do a
think
little.
we have a
we'll
video.
Take Pat.
Oh,
up
they got
to-
docents for that.
We do want to thank Pat and Janice and Joelle, and also our good buddy Jeff Harmon wasn't able to be here today. He was hoping to be here, and unfortunately he had something came up and he wasn't able to be here. But he was very instrumental in helping us get out here, as well as Pat's wife Annette.
That's right.
We want to give her our thanks too. She was coordinating with all of us, emails, and without her, we probably wouldn't be able to bring you this. So I
Absolutely.
want to give her a special thanks too. Am I forgetting anybody else that was? What's
No.
the gentleman's name here that was coordinating?
Brandon, let me see if I got his last name here.
I'm totally catching Pat off guard, and I apologize.
Brandon
for that.
Consalve.
Brandon Consalve is our
He's our-
contact with the Calvary, and we want to give him thanks too. So have we got more? Have we
This
got another
is about it, other than the coffee shop that's down below the dining room. Everything over in that area is all new construction afterwards, and that pretty much hits the whole part of the resort.
Well, we can't thank you enough, and
Well, it's my pleasure.
and again, thanks to Janice and Joelle and got anything else? Everybody, yeah,
No, I
and
just-
Annette and Jeff and Brandon.
It has been a special honor for us to be able to be allowed to come in and do this. It's not, they don't allow it. And so for them to be able to coordinate all this with us, it's certainly very much appreciated.
appreciated.
And we just couldn't thank them enough. So with that, I think
Yeah,
we'll sign off.
share these videos with your friends, because
Please like them, share them.
you're
Let us know what else you'd like to see. And my goodness, Pat, thank you again so much.
My pleasure. Thank you guys for inviting me.
we will talk with you soon.
Bye.
Okay.